Today we are going to make this beautiful loaf of sun-dried tomato bread in the Amazon Basic bread machine. Let's get started by going over the ingredients you're going to need to make this sun-dried tomato bread. You're going to need 1.5 cups of bread flour, 1.5 tablespoons of oil, this is canola oil, 2 teaspoons of sugar, 1 1/8 teaspoon of yeast, 1 teaspoon of salt, this is pink Himalayan salt, and 1 egg. Of course, you're going to need some sun-dried tomatoes and some water. Since we are putting an egg in this recipe, I'm not going to give you an exact measurement of the water, but I'm going to show you how to measure it. We want 3/4 of a cup of liquid, including the egg. That we're counting the egg as a liquid. Now this is I guess a small egg by farm fresh egg standards, but if you might have larger eggs or smaller eggs, but just use 1 egg regardless of the size. And what we're going to do is we're going to put our egg into our measuring cup. And then we're going to add water until we get up to the 3/4 cup measuring mark. And you can try not to be as messy as I am. And I'm just going to give this egg a little bit of a mix. You probably don't have to, but I am. So now we have 3/4 of a cup of liquid. And we can go ahead and we can pour that right into our bread pan. And I forgot to mention, but you want to make sure, I always do this, you want to oil the stem of your machine that holds the paddle, and so that you can remove the paddle if you think of it when the time comes, so you don't have to leave the paddle in the machine. I've been having a little bit of trouble getting to that in this machine because, again, I didn't have the working timetable, and it's kind of hard for me to guesstimate when I need to take it out, and I tend to miss it. But we'll try to get it out today if we can, and I'll tell you how much time is on the machine. And so we're going to add in our tablespoon and a half of oil, 2 teaspoons of sugar, 1 teaspoon and 1/8 of a teaspoon of yeast. This is active yeast or instant yeast, either one works just fine. And we are also going to use 1 teaspoon of salt. That's pink Himalayan salt, but you can use any kind of salt that you want. And then we're going to go ahead and put our 1.5 cups of flour in the machine. Then we're going to put our machine into the pan, and you put it in and you twist it to lock it. Okay, so hopefully you can see the menu. I am going to go with menu option number 1, and I am going to go with the 1.5 pound loaf size, and the crust color I am going to choose light because I do have an egg in here, and egg always makes the crust brown a little bit more. I want to make sure I have that pan locked. Okay, I do. 2 hours and 53 minutes is how long the cycle is, and we are just going to hit start. And off it goes. Now after it mixes for a couple of minutes, we are going to check to see if we need to add any water or any flour. Make sure our dough is the consistency we want it to be. So it's been mixing for about 2 minutes, and it's looking pretty good. So while our bread is mixing and kneading, we're going to go ahead and measure out our sun-dried tomatoes. Now I have some sun-dried tomatoes here that I purchased, or you can use some dehydrated tomatoes if you have them. And using sun-dried tomatoes I treat it kind of like I do when I'm using raisins. So I'm going to get out about approximately, it doesn't have to be exact, about 1/2 cup. Since this is a 1.5 pound loaf, I'm going to use about 1/2 cup of sun-dried tomatoes. Now these tomatoes are pretty dry, and I don't want them to absorb all the moisture out of my bread and cause me to have a really dry loaf of bread. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to soak them in some hot water. And I have some water that I brought to a boil here on the stove. And I'm going to take these tomatoes and a pair of kitchen scissors, and I'm just going to cut them up into pieces about that big. I don't want super small pieces, but these are the ones I bought. They're just halves, tomatoes that have been cut in half, so they're pretty big pieces. I'm just going to cut them up a little bit. And now I am going to pour some hot water over them so that they can rehydrate and not be so dry when I put them into the bread. So we're going to let these sit here until it's time to add them to our bread. So we are 2 hours and 10 minutes left on the machine, and it has just beeped to let me know it is time to add our add-ins. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these tomatoes and I'm going to squeeze the water out, just like I would if I were doing raisins, and go ahead and drop them in. Now that is all we have to do until it is time to remove the paddle. So our bread cycle has finished and we are ready to remove the pan from the bread machine. You just twist and lift. And when I'm taking bread out of the bread machine, I always check to make sure it's not stuck in the pan before I try to dump it out. And I do that by just giving it a little shake, and you can feel it move around if it's not stuck. And this one is moving. And I did take the paddle out. I did not capture it on camera. I took the paddle out when there was 1 hour and 38 minutes left on the machine. Isn't that a beautiful little loaf of bread? Look at that. It is a beautiful loaf of bread. It rose up beautifully. There's not much of a hole in the bottom because I removed the paddle. And we can see the tomatoes sticking out. And now we're going to let this cool for just a few minutes and then we'll slice into it. We are ready to slice into our beautiful loaf of sun-dried tomato bread. So it's a nice little square loaf. We could slice it this way, or I could turn it this way and we could slice it this way. And I'm thinking I'm going to slice it this way. Wow, look at that. Just look at this. This is some absolute beautiful, delicious, sun-dried tomato bread. It is soft, it is light, it's just got a wonderful texture. This would be delicious with any meal, or to make a sandwich out of. Toast it, put some garlic butter or herbed butter on it and just eat it. Oh, that sounds so delicious. I can't wait to try it. I hope you'll try this bread. This is delicious. Don't forget, if you enjoy these videos, please consider subscribing to my channel. Hit that like button so YouTube knows you like me. Share the video with your friends. God bless. Bye-bye.